All right, what's going on, guys? So in this video, I'm going to be covering how to identify what's holding your junior golf or back from playing Division One golf and how to fix those issues. If you're new to the channel, welcome in. This is all we talk about. We talk about how to help your child play Division One golf and all the nitty gritty, all the steps that you're going to need to go through in order to make that happen. Meat and potatoes. This isn't going to be a bunch of fluff. This is going to be real stuff that you can implement. If you're coming back to the channel, welcome back. And without further ado, let's go ahead and just hop right into this. And as always, if you guys enjoy the video, please leave it a like. It helps push it out to more people. And once again, if you're new, go ahead and subscribe. This is the type of stuff that you've been looking for to help you out. So let's go ahead and dive into this here. So first things first, you need to be able to have a way where you're tracking your child's stats. Either they need to be doing it, you need to be doing it, you both need to be doing it. If you don't have statistics on your junior golfer and the tournaments they're playing in, the practice that they have, you're just not really going to know what's going on. And you're just going to be going based off of your emotions, which isn't going to be a very effective tool to be able to see progress, right? Because if you go out there and you feel one type of way and you say, oh, I think this is going to happen, but you can't actually look at any objective data, what are you going to do? You're really going to struggle to have long-term progress. So that's step number one. Make sure you're tracking your stats. I use Draw More Circles. There's plenty of other stats apps out there. I like this one the best, obviously. But that's just foundation number one. If you're not tracking your child's stats, if they're not tracking their stats and they want to play Division One golf, they need to start doing that. And if they're not willing to do that, they're not really that serious about accomplishing that goal. So anyway, let's go ahead and dive into this. So in this case, I've got tournament rounds pulled up and I've got the last 10. The reason that I approach it that way is we want to be able to see the separation between tournament performance and practice performance, right? That's just, we don't want to have those two things muddled together. And then we also want to see a reasonable amount of data. We don't want to just go based off of what did we do last round? It's it's kind of helpful as far as if we say okay, what happened here? But it doesn't really make a lot of sense from a long-term planning perspective. So when you're trying to say, okay, what are the big trends that we want to pay attention to? Then you're going to want to look at least 5, but ideally 10 rounds of data. So in this case, I'm looking at this player statistics because we're going to be getting on a call pretty soon. And what I want to be able to do is just identify why are we shooting the scores that we're shooting and how do we improve? So in his case, I'm going to pull up his statistics here. So he's at right now 47.22 greens in regulation. I've got scrambling 25.27. We've got 3 putts, 11.3. Birdie conversion rate, 9.1. And then off the tee, we're at 14.49. All right, cool. So these are the statistics that we're working with here. We should have a scoring average of about 10.9 over par. And if I look at our statistics here, we have a scoring average of 10. So again, in this case, this player is actually outperforming kind of what he should be shooting. But that's very helpful for me in kind of identifying and also talking to the player, all right, where do we need to focus here? Now, what I'm able to do, this is just a spreadsheet that I built for all my students. But what we can do here is we can say, okay, here's where we're at right now. And this is going to show the amount of improvement that we're going to have if we make one of these changes. So for example, if I say, let's take our penalty shots down from 14% to 9%, we're going to improve by 0.9 shots. If I do the same thing for greens in regulation, we're going to see that we only improve by 0.76 shots, right? So this gives us an objective way to look at the player's data and say, okay, what's going to be the biggest bang for our buck? And then we can dig into these on an individual basis, right? Now, I can already tell you guys from just experience that this is the biggest problem. I mean, it's not even close. If we brought that down to 0, that's worth 2.6 shots. And, typically when I'm working with students, the average player, that's not everyone, the average player improves by about 3.6 shots per year. That's 70% of the entire improvement just right there. And so this is really, really valuable because, when I talk to this student, it's yeah, I'd like to see three putts, come down as well. Like that's a massive one here. But this penalty rate is just unacceptable. It's like, could his ball striking be better? Sure. Would I like to see him at 70% greens regulation? Absolutely, I would. But we can't have that many shots off the tee just being lost because it compounds throughout the rest of his round, right? It's demoralizing. And not just that, like he literally can't hit the green in regulation three times out of, those tee shots, right? So there's no chance. It's not he's in the rough. It's not, any of those scenarios. It's a penalty, and sometimes it's going to be like off the tee. It's not even going to be like take a drop next to the pond and you still have a normal approach shot. You're just automatic double bogey. You're doing that three times per round. Like you got to consider like that's really going to hurt your ability to score. It doesn't matter how good you hit your irons. And so for him, like that's one of the things that I'm going to really stress here is saying, okay, let's look at this driver and let's try and map out this ball flight more effectively. Because it's one thing to understand the statistics here. It's another thing to actually be able to say, like, what do we do with this? How should we be practicing? And then we need to be able to analyze how have we been practicing and what's off here, right? Because if I look at these statistics and say, hey, you need to get better off the tee, and then we just kind of like carry on life as normal, it's low probability that actually gets fixed, right? We need to get down to the root cause of like what's happening here when we're struggling off the tee. Do we overdraw it? Do we underdraw it? Are we picking too aggressive targets? Are we hitting driver when you shouldn't be hitting driver? Are we not actually practicing our driver? Maybe we're just ripping irons all day and we feel like driver doesn't really matter. All those things could be factors here. Another factor could be, are we not playing that much golf? Are we just hitting balls on the driving range? And we're not actually making sure that, this stuff translates. So if I were to go back here and look at this player's statistics in his practice, let's see how things change or if they're fairly similar. All right. So in this case, he's improved pretty significantly in his practice. Now let's also see, this is for outdoor practice. Okay, so he's improved significantly, which is good to see. And ball striking has improved overall. Short game's improved a lot. Putting's improved pretty significantly. Higher greens in regulation. Slightly higher birdie conversion rate, not much. Scrambling's a good bit better. Three putting's a little bit better. And then let's see where we're at off the tee. Off the tee is a little bit better. And so the other factor here that I would really look at for this particular player is what is the mindset that we're approaching these tournaments with? Because if we're going into these tournaments and saying, okay, well, I need to perform at this level. For example, it seems like this player, he's got a scoring average of about 76, 77, in his actual practice rounds, but he's got a scoring average of, roughly 82 in his tournament rounds. And so there could be a psychology element of, are we actually, going to these tournaments saying, well, I should shoot 73 because I've shot 73, a handful of times in my practice. And now that's my expectation. Or are we going into tournaments recognizing, okay, cool. Like right now we shoot 82 in tournaments. How do we get to 80, 78, 76 and actually pat ourselves on the back when we shoot that 76? How do we pat ourselves on the back when we don't hit balls out of bounds? How do we pat ourselves on the back when we don't three putt and not get carried away with kind of the minutia of, any one of these variables? So anyway, this is a little bit shorter video today, but I really wanted to get you guys clear on how you should actually be going through this process. So again, it starts with a foundation of tracking the right tournaments, or I shouldn't tracking the rounds at all. Being able to segregate out between tournaments and practice, being able to look at a 10 round, 5 round swath of data, and then being able to say, okay, here are kind of like the core statistics that we want to be looking at. And you might want to look at different statistics, but these are the ones that I find to be the most effective and most important. So, if you guys are new to this, I would really encourage looking at each one of these kind of core statistics that I listed out: birdie conversion rate, greens and regulation, scrambling, three putts, and penalty rate off the tee, because that tells you pretty much everything the player is going to do. And even you guys can see, it allows you to calculate out what a player should shoot pretty accurately. And then we can just say, hey, if we change one of those variables, like for example, right now we've got this, 47% greens in regulation. If we had 3 more attempts to be able to hit the ball on the green by not hitting the ball out of bounds, what would that do to greens in regulation? they would have a substantial jump, not by becoming a better iron player, but simply by hitting more greens. And it's important that we don't want to look at too small of a data sample. So if we just say, hey, this last tournament was really bad, well, it doesn't really tell us that much. You could have just had a couple of bad days. You could have gotten in your head a little bit. Versus if we see kind of long-term trends, that's really where we want to keep our focus in. So hopefully this is helpful for you guys in kind of understanding A, the value of actually tracking data, and B, just how to approach these problems. You don't want to just go at it emotionally. You want to be able to say, okay, objectively, this is the area that's going to have the biggest bang for our buck. And then here's what we want to do specifically. And then here's how long we're going to measure that for. And then we're able to see, okay, did we make progress or did we not make progress? That's really the way you guys want to be approaching this. If you guys want coaching like this, if you want me to actually do this for your junior golfer, there'll be a link below this video where you can apply for coaching. It's pretty straightforward. I'll do all this stuff for you. I'll tell your child exactly which tournaments to play in, what they need to be doing as far as their practice goes. I'll show them how to track their statistics and guide them every step of the way. Every week we'll get on coaching calls so they know exactly what they need to do. You'll know exactly what you need to do as a parent. You'll also be able to message me throughout the week if you have any questions or anything like that. So if that's something you guys are interested in, something you think would be helpful for you, just click the link below and you can apply for that. For everyone else, hopefully you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys next week.